I was about 5 blocks away when I heard explosions, 3 thuds, and turned around to see the building we just got out of, antenna tip over and fall in on itself.
What happened, man? Big boom, come down the steps, everything fine till we got to the basement, and then everything just fell in. I got trapped under there with another guy, crawled out, kept getting hit in the head, hit bags all around. Finally, we clawed our way out over the rubble.
Yeah.
Come on, Don. We did all right.
All right, where to be, Tom? Let's go.
As soon as we got out of the train station, people were screaming and crying and yelling, and it was just total chaos. And the bottom of our building was blown out.
Down Broadway. I was standing at the corner of Fulton and Broadway. I ran into a building, ran between a column and a building at 195 Broadway, and pushed my face and my body into that building. For what seemed like 5 minutes, I was pelted with all kinds of debris. I crouched down, was coughing, trying to breathe. You couldn't get any air. The air was so full of smoke and dust. At 10:30, I tried to leave the building, but as soon as I got outside, I heard a second explosion and another rumble and more smoke and more dust. I ran inside the buildings, the chandelier shook, and again, black smoke filled the air. Within another 5 minutes, we were covered again with more silt and more dust. And then a fire marshal came in and said we had to leave because if there was a third explosion, this building might not last. The streets of the financial district covered with debris, in some cases ankle deep. Cars on fire, cars just turned by the force of the explosions. It was like something no one had ever seen.
All right, thanks very much, NBC's Ann Thompson. But let me ask you, after you finally emerged from that building, what about other people who could not get into a building? What kind of casualties did you see?
Tom, I will tell you that when I walked out of the building on Broadway and headed down towards Canal, it was as if there had been a blizzard of debris and dust all over the street. I saw people running, I was walking, there were a lot of rescue people there, but there were people injured. I saw a woman being carried by 2 men. It was like something I had never seen anything like it, and all I could think of was just to get away from there, to get to safety. And as I kept walking to Canal Street, I could hear yet another explosion behind me. It was truly one of the most frightening moments I've ever lived through.
He's Ron Insana, who went down with a cameraman hoping to get close to the World Trade Center, and then it began to come down, the first one. Ron, take us through what you experienced.
Well, Tom, much of the area had been, in fact, cordoned off, and the cameraman from MSNBC and I were trying to get across to the west side of the World Trade Center in order to hook up with the rest of the NBC crews that we knew were there. As we were moving towards the building, we saw the top begin to blow out in a plume of smoke, and we heard the noise associated with an implosion. We turned and immediately ran for cover in the other direction as debris began to rain down.
The full impact was seen in the moment in time. My colleague Stephen Evans, who was in the Trade Center and was interviewed just after the first explosion.
There was another big explosion in the other tower. Flames coming out in this billowing grey smoke. People still not panicking, people not quite understanding what was going on. Then somebody said that they saw an airliner go into one of those towers. Then, I don't know, an hour later than that, we had that big explosion from much, much lower. I don't know what on earth caused that. The thing that strikes me is, one, the terribleness of the incident, whatever the cause, and we don't go into the politics, but whatever the cause, the terribleness, the hugeness of what's happened. So huge, in fact, that most of the people around simply can't understand what happened. People were just standing around, talking to each other, nodding their heads. Oh my God. We gotta go.
Oh my God.
Your story is important. What happened?
Well, I guess it was a little before 9. I was in another employee's office when I heard an explosion, and then the building started to shake, and I thought, oh, here I go again, because I was there in 1993 as well, when the bomb went off. So I went around, started back to my section.
Which tower were you in, 1 or 2?
I was in 1, and when
I think it's pretty logical to assume that Mr. Jackson was hearing Flight 11 crash into the North Tower at 8:46. But let's see what else he has to say.
What did you do when you got out of the building?
Well, I went out into the street, and I looked back after I got past Church Street to see what had happened, and I saw that both of the buildings were on fire. And with that, I just, moved as far north as I could away from there. And I was about 4 or 5 blocks away when all of a sudden the street shook. And I heard like an explosion. I thought, oh my God, I said, the bomb just went off. And I turned around and looked back, and I saw all of this soot and smoke, and everyone just started running then.
Which tower were you in, 1 or 2?
I was in 1, and when I saw that was when Tower 2 collapsed.
The South Tower, the first to go, and the North Tower after that.
I saw an individual coming down that was clearly, he was completely burned from head to toe, and all of his skin had come off his forearms and his face, and his hair was all gone, and looked a little disoriented, so he seemed to be on his cell phone, either talking to somebody or trying to reach somebody, and I asked him what happened. What was amazing about his story was that he was in the lobby of World Trade Center 1 when the first plane hit, and when the debris started coming down, he went back to go into the building to protect himself and was in the revolving doors going back in off West Street when he looked up and a fireball came flying out, I guess from the elevator shafts, that's what he seemed to believe, and blew out all the windows and threw him back onto the street, and obviously, in a fire flash, seared all his skin. But apparently nothing, all his clothes, none of his clothes were burned. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, amazing, all right. An amazing crock of shit. So we're supposed to believe that a fireball travels 80-some floors down an elevator shaft, blows open the elevator shaft, knocks this guy down through the windows, blows out all the windows, and just chooses to burn his face. I think it's a safe assumption to say that the percussion wave from an explosion sheared his skin off. But let's see what firemen had to say that were actually in the lobby.
Fear and terror.
Pfeiffer was the first chief into the building. Right away, a guy from the Port Authority told him the damage was somewhere above the 78th floor. But all you had to do was look around. It was obvious. Something had happened right there in the lobby.
You just saw that all the windows were blown out. The lobby looked like the plane hit the lobby.
On 9/11, New York City lost 343 firefighters at the World Trade Center. Since they were the ones inside the towers before and as they collapsed, I'd say they've got a pretty good grasp on what happened.
6 stories high, and the lobby looked as though a bomb had exploded there. All the glass was taken out. There were 10-foot by 10-foot marble panels that were once walls. They were loose from the wall of the Trade Center.
Firefighter Louis Caccioli told People Weekly, "I was taking firefighters up in the elevator to the 24th floor to get in position to evacuate workers. On the last trip up, a bomb went off. We think there were bombs set in the building."
Okay, I'm just going to make a common sense observation here. The North and South Towers were both 110 stories each. Where's all the concrete? All I see is piles and piles of steel all over the ground.
You have 2 110-story office buildings. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big. The building collapsed to dust.
And now let's hear a few words from a guy who worked for the company that the government contracted to help clean up the steel after the World Trade Center disaster. Controlled Demolition Incorporated. I so very much wish I was making this up.
The thing that pleases me is the fragmentation and the control. One to take a building and break it up into millions of pieces and put it in this basement as artfully as we do it, and it works just like clockwork. So we've got it all down to a science. It gives me goosebumps to talk about it.